This is an awesome film. I've complimented you already, but you should hear it in public one more time. I've seen this film twice, and it's a great piece of work. And
Thank you.
For those of you that don't know, this is an impressive work, and that this is Keanu's directorial debut, which is an amazing achievement for any first-time
Thank you very
filmmaker.
much.
So I guess my first question is, do you feel, I would think as an actor for many years, you're always exposing yourself to an audience. You feel a little bit naked out there every time a film comes out and hoping for their approval. Does it feel a little bit more of your soul is out there on display when it's your directing effort? A little more nerve-wracking this time around?
It's different. I would say you certainly feel more responsible. You know, I'm not one of those actors who doesn't go see the finished film. I like to see what the director did with it, or what, how was the story told. And in this time, it was my responsibility, and so I felt that. But I like the film very much, which helps. And do I feel? Yeah, I would just say yes. You feel more responsible, and in terms of that. You hope people enjoy it.
Were you, like if I'd spoken to you 10 years ago about possibly directing, would that have been on your mind? Was this something on the checklist of something to get to at some point?
Maybe 8 years ago. 10, maybe not. But probably about 8 years ago I started thinking about that. And then it was just, for me, it became just like I'm looking for a story to tell. I would love to direct, but I needed a story to tell, and Man of Tai Chi became that story. It's
an incredibly ambitious film for any filmmaker, let alone someone that's the first time behind the camera. Had you directed anything before? Had you done a short, a commercial, anything?
No. Maybe some dinner parties.
They were really well orchestrated dinner parties.
They were just like, okay, let's put that over there. No, I hadn't.
And were there? Obviously you've worked with some of the greatest filmmakers on the planet. You have to glean some wisdom working with them over the years. And I would assume, I would assume that you maybe didn't have the natural jitters of a first-time filmmaker this first couple of days on set, or were they nerve-wracking times?
I never felt it in the context of that, in the sense of you've never done it, or I just felt like I had a story to tell. I was very familiar with a lot of the rooms, having produced, and so I'd been in the editing room, I'd been in pre-production, I'd been developing scripts for over 10 years. So I was, casting I've been a part of, but it was the first time that it was, my responsibility. Certainly in the post was where I had probably the least experience, in terms of being, part of editing or post sound. I'd been involved in the color correction before. So for me, and obviously the shooting floor, I was very comfortable in. I felt at home. So I never really thought about, I never kind of went in and went like, on the first day of shooting, like, I've never done this. I don't know, I felt like it was just like, okay, so like, what are we gonna do? Let's see,
Totally.
And in prep and all of that, again, I'd had experience. And I was working with great collaborators. I had a wonderful cinematographer, great producer, production design, and so the collaborative part of it, I really enjoyed, and I had a lot of support.
Well, let's talk about some of those collaborators, because first and foremost, obviously, your leading man in this one, Tiger Chen, is a friend of yours, someone that you guys may have heard of the Matrix films. I don't know if you've heard of that. He first met Tiger Chen on those films. Give me a sense of how that relationship went from friendship, working collaboration, to this project in particular.
I met Tiger Chen, in probably 1997. He was part of Yuen Wu-ping, who was the action director for the Matrix trilogy. And at the time, we didn't know it was a trilogy. But anyway, the Matrix film. The directors knew it was a trilogy, but we didn't. And anyway, so he was responsible for training the actors in movie Kung Fu, which involves actually real training. So we were stretching for 2 hours, we were punching, kicking, and doing all of the wire work. And through the course of these years and this time spent together, when you're stretching for 2 hours from across from someone who's like driving your legs open and pushing you down to the ground, you kind of like, it's like, so where did you grow up? Oh, God, what? Chengdu? Yeah, what's it like in Chengdu? You know. And so we became friends. And so, he's actually in, I think he's in Reloaded. But he'd started acting. He was in Lawrence Fishburne's film. He was doing roles. We kept in contact, and around 2007, he sent me a script. And I was like, that's nice. And I'd like to work with you. You'd like to work with me. And I was like, well, let's try and find another story. And so then over the course of the years, we started to develop a story, which was, this is a long answer.
No, it's a perfect answer. You're doing great.
But
more grunting, please. More screaming and grunting.
Okay. Everyone wants the action. So do I. And so Tiger has he has a master. That's one of the things I would ask him is like, tell me more stories about your master. He has a very traditional martial arts upbringing and training. And he's also a very modern guy. And so Man of Tai Chi is inspired by, for me, this part of him. There's a lot about the film that's, a modern, in the contemporary world, in modern China, Beijing, Hong Kong. How do we hold on or maintain our authentic self? How do we have, tradition in the modern world? How do we not have the modern world consume us and everything? And so Tiger, to me, is like the source, the well.
You mentioned, it's funny because when I was watching it for the second time yesterday, there's some, I was talking to you backstage, there are 11 kind of set pieces, huge fights in the film, and some, all of them very striking, but one of the ones that affected me most is one of the master kind of apprentice sequences, and I, as a Star Wars fan, thought of like those lightsaber duels, which I think part of the reason those always resonated with me was the relationship at hand. And I'm curious in terms of like when you approach a fight scene, do you reference other films, whether it's great kung fu films or a Star Wars film, or do you kind of just go instinctual? Where do you start?
With all of that, I mean, I'm a fan of kung fu films. I'm not an aficionado, but I've seen a whole bunch of them. I love them, since I was a kid, and also in terms of designing the fights. I looked at a lot of kung fu films just for the editing style, where are they putting the camera, and because my hope was to take these sequences and not make them just action sequences, but to make them dramatic sequences, and that we're watching a character change. Tiger gets involved in underground fighting, and he's interested in externalizing and in his power. And he gets a little intoxicated. So I wanted these fights to have an emotion, a visceral impact and connection, and hopefully make them immersive. And then with the shooting styles, they do have different feels to them, editing style, camera, etc.
And let me just thank you, because someone who's seen a lot of film for my job and for fun, to actually be able to understand the choreography and see what's happening in a fight scene. It's a pet peeve in recent years for me, and I'm sure for other people, that it's just too frenetic, right? Am I alone here?
No, but that has its place, I mean,
Right.
if we think of the Bourne films, for me, is where a lot of that was really realized in a really really good way. But yeah, I was trying to always, one of the things in the film is I'm trying to work with objective and subjective and voyeurism and breaking the wall, but I always wanted you to know where you were and what was going on. So, there's a little bit of shaky cam, but not really.
It's a classical film. This is like
a classic tradition, but very modern and hopefully postmodern.
It's everything in one.
Postmodern meta.
When you first started doing fight training for The Matrix and kind of got into this world a little bit, did you like it? Did you get off on it in the way that maybe your lead character does?
Yeah. You mean, did I enjoy shooting the fight scenes?
Well, yeah. I guess I would imagine, you kind of alluded to it, that's grueling. That's months and months and months of training that can.
Yeah, Tiger was astounding. He had so much action and fighting to do. He's very brave. I love it. I loved the storytelling. I loved the cinema of it. And, you know, it was like each fight, each sequence, Tiger would have, you know, would be there. He had maybe, like that fight was, Monk Fight's 5 days of filming. So it's, you know, 12 hours a day for 5 days. The other performer, Ocean Howe, lovely man. But guys would come in and they'd be like, oh, right, we're working, we're going to do Man of Tai Chi, and here we are. Tiger would be just like, but they'd all start, you know, and it was like, do you need a pad? No, it's okay, it's okay. And then by like the end of the first day, it was like, Tiger's just like here still. And the other guy's like, oh my God. And he's got like ice and things. And like, I mean, we broke people, but didn't break them. We just, there were a couple of hospitals. But there was such a passion and a joy in it. You know, we were working with Wu Ping. People really responded to the script. And, you know, it's a film that hadn't really been done before, a kind of co-production, you know, so this kind of Hollywood style way of making film. You know, it's, what is it? It's 60% in Mandarin Cantonese and then English. So it was a new world. We felt like we were, you know, doing something, I don't want to go that, I can't say that far, but we're doing something that hadn't been done quite like this before. And so there was a real passion to it, and people were willing to do another take and keep going.
We should mention, I mean, your character in this one. You've given yourself an awesome...
Donica Mark.
Donica is awesome. He's a great creation. Was it always the intent that you would act in this? And that must have been... Was it enjoyable? Because, I mean, you obviously had very much a full-time job, but you couldn't devote the normal kind of singular process to it. Was that difficult to kind of juggle?
Those were like 4 questions, John.
Oh my God.
Which I don't mind.
Take the third question first.
Huh?
Take the third part first.
The third part.
Whichever one you want.
Okay, so that wasn't difficult being an actor and directing. It was more about you hadn't played a villain before. Did you enjoy Donica Mark? In the process, how did we end up becoming Donica Mark? You know, as we developed the script, it was myself, Michael Cooney, the writer, and Tiger Chen, and executive producer Dashing Zhang. And so we were developing the script and collaborating, and Donica's voice, you know, you owe me a life, you know, this idea of when Tiger would come to him with concerns, you know, Donica says, does it matter? And I just love that, does it matter? You know, like, what are you ultimately thinking, and he already knows. I mean, there's an idea about control in this, and then also subservience. And also the idea of free will, and also being seduced by your own passion.
Totally.
You know, Donica appropriates Tiger's passion for wanting to excel and to succeed and show Tai Chi to the world and the idea of power. And Donica just keeps going, yeah, keep going. Keep going. Yeah, you want that? Go have it. And I feel like that's kind of personal thought for me, that's a dangerous seduction, and that we need, in the film Man of Tai Chi, we deal with this idea of power and control, but also meditation or thoughtfulness. This idea that we think about our choices and our circumstances, just starting with that.
You know, you get your money's worth. Keanu kicks some ass and gets his ass kicked a little bit towards the end of the film.
I do indeed. There is a super fight.
It's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. We filmed that for about 8 days. It was like 8 days, 10 days, but yeah, it was fun.
Does it feel like, are you still the peak conditioning for Kung Fu? Did it take a little more out of you than back in the Matrix days?
Well, you know, I wasn't able to train the same way. So after all of the reactions and stuff, my neck went into spasm, so that was fun. Is that too much information?
Well, on that note,
no. But other than that, it was just awesome. It was fun to fight. It was fun to fight with Tiger. You know, I mean, it was really exciting to be a part of this young artist's chance to shine, you know, and it was part of the reason why Yuan Wu Ping said yes to working with me in the film, was that he had worked with Tiger for, 10 years. And so Tiger is like, an expert, he's a stuntman, actor, performer, and to be a part of that journey for this artist who sacrificed and dedicated so much of himself, and the gift of him doing that with me to tell this story that hopefully you will enjoy.